baby, listen to the speaker. No matter what, just say the word. Loving all I see.
Perswayable. What's going on, everybody? So finally I'm going to release the character tier list. You guys can already see it. And what I have done is I have talked to a lot of the top tier players, my constituents, and we agree that there is no organizational process that will make everybody 100% satisfied. However, what this list will do is kind of break things down to show you which characters are good for rank and which characters are not. Before we start discussing it, there are a few things that you need to understand. One, just because two characters are in the same category does not mean that they are necessarily equal in skill. In the same category, there could be one character that's slightly better than the other. However, it's supposed to be more of a broad spectrum within each category to say this is roughly where this character fits. Okay, and we'll get into that a little bit more. Furthermore, this is based on high tiers. This is based on, I'm right now #1 overall for EXP. I'm the top 25 survivor in the game. This is for top tiers, and I'm going to explain how that gets broken down. And there's a lot of people who always try to come in and say, oh, well, forward could be good in this situation. Forward's not good for top tiers, and I'll explain why a little bit later. So I want to make that clear. There is a fundamental understanding that you need to be aware of when you start looking at this list. And it's really based on three things. It's based on your static versus dynamic debuff to decoding, right? So a static debuff is bad. It means that you always have a debuff to your decoding. That is never used in high tier ranks. We don't use them. It hurts your entire team. Versus dynamic decode debuffing. I had a little brain fart right there. And that's somebody like the mechanic or the coordinator where it's situational. They don't always have a debuff. It's only activated in certain circumstances, okay? So this list it puts a heavy emphasis on static debuffing. That's a very negative thing. It puts a heavy emphasis on the ability to decode normally. It puts an emphasis on either a strength in decoding or a strength in kiting. And it also puts in a significant advantage having the veteran bonus. You're going to see that when we get to the C tier, and we'll explain that a little bit more in detail. This video is going to be a little bit longer than normal because I need to be extremely thorough with this. So let's get right into it. We're only doing one take. There's no edits, nothing. Everything's on top of the head. I got nothing in front of me, just me looking at my ugly face. It looks like Drake and Ben Stiller had a baby that got pushed down a flight of stairs. And I also have the same character list in front of you. So let's talk about S tier. And there are three characters who rightfully belong in S tier. Coordinator is used in every single match for top tiers. Every single match. She's your main stunner. She can use her flare. You got to be careful of the excitement. She has a 10% Vulcan bonus, which is the third best in combination with the mercenary. The only two people that beat that is the thief at 15% and the forward at 20%. So she can kite, she can save, and she can decode. She is the most versatile character in the game, like quite literally. She can save, she can decode, and she can kite. The thief cannot do that. All right, the magician can a little bit with the saving, but doesn't have a stun bonus, right? So she is the most versatile character in the entire game. She is used in every single top tier match, okay? As of now, the thief is also a top tier character. Most people understand this. There is a con to him, and the con is that he increases calibrations. Now, I think a lot of people underlook this, and I think that you shouldn't. Increase in calibrations is a positive and a negative. It can increase your decode speed by up to 5 seconds for a perfect calibration. Not per calibration, but in total. The thief takes 70 seconds to decode a machine. It comes to 65 seconds when you have perfect calibrations. However, how many of you have been in this situation where you're on a machine, you're just doing your own thing, and all of a sudden you got a stupid charging clown, and you're like, not a big deal, I'm gonna get off the machine. Oh, ha! Calibration, electrocuted, boom, he gets an easy first shot on you. That is a huge negative consequence of using thief. However, it's not so detrimental. Every character is going to have a con. That doesn't mean that they're bad. If there's a character that doesn't have a con, they're overpowered, they need to be nerfed. Alright, the thief is also going to be the hard counter to Geisha. You guys can look up the moonwalking guide. You're going to figure out why he's a hard counter. Now, this is what people don't understand. Now, I came out with a YouTube video called Tight Kiting. Tight Kiting is the ability to really kite in a small confined area. There's a specific term called pallet looping where you're using specific pallets. The thief is the best tight kiting pallet manipulator in the entire game because he is a hard counter to Joker. Yomama, a user, I'm not talking about your mom, I'm sure she's a wonderful woman, but Yomama, the user, is the best kiter in the game. He's a better kiter than me, and that takes a lot for me to admit. He's a great kiter, phenomenal kiter, and he uses the magician. The magician is supposed to use his illuminations to body block a charging clown. You're not supposed to try to trick the clown at all times. You can use it in a desperate move, but most of the time when you're pallet looping and using these tight corners, you can use it if the clown is starting to catch up to you. And that's exactly how Yomama uses him. And he's a great, phenomenal kiter, and a lot of people don't understand because they're like, well, he doesn't have a vaulting bonus. Well, he can body block a charging clown in the wide open, which no other character can do, okay? And furthermore, he gets a 30% boost for roughly 2 seconds after initiating his illumination. So you can actually block a rocket dash and also get a 30% boost to get to the window with an illumination body block in your safe exit. Okay, so he's an S tier character. Yomama uses him all the time. He's a great character. So S tiers, usually everybody understands why these are the 3 best kiters. So once again, Coordinator will have a debuff, but that's okay. She has a flare gun to compensate for it. And her job is to always rescue to begin with. Okay, Thief, hard counted to Geisha. Magician, hard counted to Joker. That's just common sense, objective information. Alright, now let's get to the mechanic. Now some people they wonder why I put the mechanic above the Mind's Eye. Now before I explain this, remember, B, A, and S are all top tier characters. So just because a character is technically objectively better doesn't mean that, like for instance, Aesthetic God uses a Mind's Eye. Aesthetic God is a top 20 survivor. I play with Aesthetic God and he does a phenomenal job with Mind's Eye. And so it's not like if I see a Mind's Eye, I'm not like, oh well, why can't you be mechanic? That's not how it works. Now, the thing with the mechanic is that the best mechanic in the game, in my opinion, will be Fluxor Gallant. I've played with Fluxor Gallant. A lot of my viewers have seen Fluxor Gallant. He is absolutely amazeballs with the mechanic. Now, the thing with the mechanic is that people don't know is that when you use your doll, you're not affected by debuffs, right? So we all know that when somebody is injured, it stacks up and it really negatively impacts the decoding process of a mechanic, but not your doll. So if there's any debuffs, you use your doll, you're perfectly fine. You can get down the machine. But what's also interesting about the mechanic, although she's god-awful with her vaulting, okay, the nice thing about her is that if she is captured on the rocket chair, this is how high tiers play her, she doesn't use her doll to rescue her. That's the coordinator's job. She uses her doll to continue decoding. So even if you have a camping hunter, you still have 3 people still decoding all of those machines with a coordinator going for the rescue. So it sucks because if you camp her, there's still massive amounts of machines being decoded. 3 of them, because she's using her doll while sitting on the chair. People don't know that either. You can continue using your doll when you're sitting on the chair. And what they usually do is that they're going to continue to decode because they're not going to take their doll and bring it to the chair because they already know that the coordinator is going to rescue them, so they don't waste their doll. However, sometimes they will bring their doll because then it can help the coordinator get away without even being injured once. So you have flexibility. The thing about the mechanic too is that mechanic can do a last ditch save at the end of the game if the hunter decides to leave somebody at a rocket chair. She has incredible flexibility that the Mind's Eye simply does not have. She doesn't really have kiting ability, so her and Mind's Eye are at the same caliber at that, but she can actually decode faster technically in early game if she's using her doll correctly, and on top of that she can also save, and when she's on the chair she can still decode like an animal. So it's one of those things where she is more versatile than Mind's Eye. Objectively, mechanic is better than Mind's Eye. Now let's get the Mind's Eye. So some people don't know why Mind's Eye is up here. Some think that she should be lower. The thing with Mind's Eye is that it's situational, right? A hard counter to Mind's Eye is a Geisha using teleport, right? So that is a hard counter, although a hard counter to Coordinator would be using Excitement. So there's a hard counter to many of them. A hard counter to Thief and to Magician, and virtually anybody is using Blink. So Mind's Eye users, you got to be very careful about the teleport, because what will happen is because you're decoding faster than everybody else, you'll have top tier hunters like Cura. She'll try to go after somebody in the beginning of the match. If she can't get them in the first minute, she'll look at the machine, see the machine wiggling, and go teleport right to you, because she knows that your machine is wiggling faster than every other machine. It's most likely the Mind's Eye, unless you're relocating in the beginning. So it is a common tactic. However, having her in rank can be the difference between winning and losing. Sometimes you have players who go down very early, and if the Mind's Eye is left alone, then she can keep calibrating, decoding the machines while everybody is in this situation where they're trying to rescue each other. I've seen those circumstances before. So she is viable. Alright, so we're going to get to tier C, and this is where the controversy comes. This is the bread and butter. This is the turkey, bacon, biscuits, and gravy of everything. So most people don't have a problem with S, A, and B. A lot of the high tiers will agree to this. I've asked over 10 of the top 40 players to look at this, and they're just like, we can reasonably agree with this tier list. All right, so we see in top tiers, right, against the top hunters in the game, we see S, A, and B. C, D, and F are not used. I can't wait to get to D because that's going to be a learning lesson. So we got a few things that we need to explain here for C, D, and F. So remember I said that characters, even though they're in the same category, some characters are better. Now this is where people get upset. Objectively, the Gardener is better than Lucky Guy. I'm very sorry. I know you guys don't want to hear it. I made a YouTube video saying how to use Gardeners by deleting the game, okay? So trust me, I'm in the same boat as you. The thing is that the Gardener is, if she's not you, first of all, a Gardener should never take down more than 4 rocket chairs, and it should always be on one side of the map. It should be the 4 closest to a certain gate. If you're going to theoretically use her, you still shouldn't really be taking down rocket chairs unless there's only one cipher machine left. You already know somebody's decoding it. You're near the gate, and you're like, I got some time to spare. That's really the only time you should be doing that because you need to decode. Decoding is so important. Remember that. That's going to be important for Category D. Here's the thing though, with Gardener, she has 10% perseverance on the rocket chair, and she has a veteran bonus. Now that veteran bonus is, when we all know that when you're injured, you get a little bit of a boost away from the hunter. But the veteran bonus is a significant boost that occurs for 2 seconds. Now if you're a lucky guy and you get hit, you get that veteran bonus. And if you get a veteran bonus and then climb a window and then roll over a pallet, you'll literally go like half the map in like 7 seconds. It's a ridiculous amount of speed. So a veteran bonus is a significant advantage for players. Gardener has that, and she has 10% perseverance on the rocket chair, right? And on top of that, she increases calibration success. Do you remember me talking about how we have to remember the con of thief because calibrations are more frequent? Well, if you have a bigger calibration success, when you activate the calibration, you can get off of it quicker and not be electrocuted as much. Now, does that mean you should use her in rank? No, it doesn't. She's not category B or higher. But objectively, the only thing that Lucky Guy has, the only thing he has is veteran bonus, which is fine. It's actually really good for him, all right? But the thing is that we have to objectively say that Gardener is better, objectively. Now, sure, we may have players who don't know how to use her correctly. We have users who don't know how to use Thief or Coordinator or Mechanic or Mind's Eye, right? But objectively, she has more perks to her than what Mind's Eye does. Now, there was a top 15 player who did nothing but play Mind's Eye. I'm sorry, Lucky Guy. And Lucky Guy, that initial boost is really good. And with Doctor, you can use Doctor in a few ways. She can heal like a monster if you build up north on the persona tree. She can kite a little bit, but not really, because her Volton bonus is god awful. That's why she's not a B or higher character. And she can also rescue, but I don't really recommend her always using rescue because it's not like you're using Coordinator where you can stun the hunter. So typically when you go for the rescue, essentially the hunter is just going to be able to knock them down. So you could invest in Tide Turner with her, but they're going to be down in 20 seconds. Whereas the Coordinator's flare gun really gives that little extra boost of 3 to 5 seconds where the person can really get to a good kiting area. So now, with that being said, I would rather have a Gardener on my team than anybody in Tier D. Now, I know that's going to get people really upset, and we're going to get to that as well. So C and D is the most controversial of this entire list. Remember what I said. In order to understand this list, you need to understand that in high tier matches, decoding is the most important thing. Which is why Gardener is not a high tier ranked character, because she doesn't always decode. She's taking down rocket chairs like a bimbo. And then you have some Gardener users who say, well, I don't take rocket chair down. Well, then why are you using somebody whose main skill is to take down a damn rocket chair? Why don't you use somebody who has a Volton bonus if you're just going to try to kite or try to decode? So either way, I digress. But so we have, that's why we have tier C. They're better than tier D because they don't have a debuff to their decode. This is the most important lesson I can teach you guys. I don't care if, I'm not trying to be rude, but I don't care if you're a low tier and you tell me how when you're forward you have the most decoded on your team. I don't care about that. Having a static debuff to your decode hurts the entire team. When you're facing a hunter, a top tier hunter like DS and Kiora, Cashin Twitch, Eon, Devil, UH, when you're facing some of these top tier hunter guys, okay, you cannot reasonably expect me to kite forever because you don't know how to use a character in SA and B. So what you do is you take a character in D and you do a horrible disservice to the team with a decode buff, debuff, and now you expect me to kite longer because you don't know how to play the characters. That's essentially, category D is essentially, I'm not good enough to play a character in S or A, so what I'm going to do is have a significant kiting advantage, but I'm going to make everybody else on my team work harder and make them decode longer, or rather kite longer. Remember, top tier hunters don't care about you if you're in category D. Now, Priestess, I will kill you in the beginning of the match every time. You have a debuff to your default. I'm sorry, a debuff to your vault, so you're awful. You don't get your holy keys until 60 seconds into the match, so you're super easy to kill in the beginning. You're just as likely to be killed. You're actually more likely to be killed in the beginning than Lucky Guy, because Lucky Guy doesn't have a vault and debuff. So Priestess objectively is horrible early game, and we know that early game is the most important part of the game. Like, quite literally, you cannot afford to go down too early. Now, you might say, well, Priestess can rescue, Priestess can do this. Listen, a static debuff with forward is awful. 30% is god awful. Top tier hunters will ignore you. I need a drink of my coffee. Hold on. Top tier hunters will ignore you. Now, this is what I find really funny about forward users. Forward users are like, well, what I do is I wait for the hunter to get somebody, and then I just wait, and then I run into them, so I stun them. So you're telling me that you're not decoding, and you're just standing around waiting for somebody to die so you can potentially get a stun and drop them. That sounds like an incredible waste of time. And then the other argument is, when I use forward, what I do is I just decode when they don't go after me. Right. So that means that the person who's kiting now has to kite longer because you picked a horrible character. You're essentially saying, I need to kite longer because your decode is so awful. You do not use static debuffs in high tiers. Ever, ever. It doesn't happen. There's one dude who uses forward in the top 30, and it's god awful every time. We lose all the time, and hunters love it. There's one dude, I think, who tries to use mercenary in the top 30, and same thing, we lose all the time. And nobody uses Priestess in top tiers. Listen, I'm not, and I know it's going to happen. I know it's going to happen. Somebody's going to go into the YouTube comments, and they're going to give this theoretical argument, and I love it. Please give me your opinions. Please challenge me. Just because I'm a top tier player does not mean I'm invincible or god, but I am telling you, if this worked, top tier players would be using them. We don't use them. And you as an individual deserve to hear the truth. You deserve to hear how this synergy works, because if you don't, then you're going to actually think from some dude who barely plays a game and he tells you forward's the best player, you're going to invest an incredible amount of time learning a player who, once you get to a certain tier, other people are going to be like, what are you doing? Decoding is the most important thing. Kiting ability is the second most important thing. I understand that in tier D, these are great kiters to a certain extent. More so Priestess end game, these two in early game, but it's not worth it. Hunters will ignore you. Like, let's make that very clear. Hunters will ignore you. Especially against Joker and Geisha, who are the only hunters used. You use that football against a charging clown, you're going to die almost every time, because he's eventually going to catch up to you, because you are going to have a stun at the end. The mercenary is elbow pads. Even if you use them correctly, a Geisha is still going to be able to catch up to you. So these characters with these debuffs, we don't want them in high tiers. If I'm a thief and I have to kite longer, do you know how frustrating it is when I kite a hunter for 2 minutes, 2 solid minutes in a high tier match? That's a game over. We won. But when you use users like this and there's still 3 ciphers up because you have a forward just waiting for me to die so you can try to do a stupid stun, or you got a forward or a mercenary who are decoding at god awful rates, or you got a priestess who still takes an extra 10 seconds on a cipher machine. If anybody watches my live streams, you know that every second counts. Quite literally every second counts. And when it takes you 10 to 30 seconds longer for one cipher machine, that's almost me fully dead on a rocket chair. And that means that it's the coordinator's job now more difficult to rescue me, because now she uses her flare gun, she rescues me, we're still at an awful cipher rate. So if anyone else is now injured or put on a rocket chair, we don't have a flare. I'm telling you guys, in top tiers, like, you guys see this, you guys see this, we get hundreds of viewers, you guys know this. Decode as fast as you can, kite as great as you can, and save as fast as you can. Those are the three main elements of this. Do not use a character under any circumstances with a static debuff. They're not worth it. They're used by people who they're not phenomenal at kiting, so they need to take a huge hit at the compromise of them staying alive. Sure, if I'm playing with somebody who's tier 2 or tier 3, sure, maybe using the forward is good for you because you can throw the pallet down faster and you have a 20% Bolton bonus, and you staying alive ultimately is more important. But if I'm playing high tier rank match, not so much. So let's get to F tier, because I ranted there for a long time. And F tier is probably the one that I struggled a little bit with Explorer. I do believe that there's an argument to move Explorer up, but there's a reason why I put him below D, actually. Maybe I should put him in D, but let's first talk about Lawyer. Lawyer is the worst character in the game. If anyone has been watching my streams, you know that high tiers in the beginning of the match, we diversify the map, which means that we are not on the same machine early game, ever. We're not. We diversify. We know the important, because if there's 2 or 3 of us on the same machine and a hunter comes, now we all disperse. That now means 2 or 3 people are no longer decoded. Remember, decode as fast as possible, right? So people will normally disperse. So Lawyer, the whole being able to decode faster next to people around him, it doesn't apply. You don't want to be next to it. You need to diversify the map. If you don't diversify the map, that's when you have 3 machines that are right next to each other at the end game. Good game, you're going to die. So his entire ability where he helps people decode faster theoretically only works at the end game. Because of his Volton, he's horrible. He's a horrible Volter, and he's super easy to kill. So Lawyer is objectively the worst character in the game. Explorer. So the problem with Explorer, there's a few good things about him, and maybe I'm being a little bit too harsh on him. But the problem is that when you use your minimized book, alright, there are perks where people can still see you on certain maps, right? Like Red Church, Explorer is completely useless, right? So you're taking a gamble based on the map. And I don't like to choose a character where it's a complete gamble based on the map. So like him on Red Church, he's absolutely useless, okay? So, and that's a 1 in 4 chance now that you're picking a map where your skill is useless. But the other problem with him is that he doesn't have a veteran bonus, right? So he doesn't have a veteran bonus, which means that when you attack him, he doesn't get that 2-second boost like the other 3 do in Tier C. That is a big significant advantage. That is a huge advantage when you have veteran bonus, because that makes the difference between being able to relocate to another spot of the map versus not being able to. Furthermore, the problem with Explorer is that although his tracks do disappear 1 second faster, and although he can bolt things without any sort of indicator, and although he doesn't have a debuff to his decode, and ultimately his skill is useless, you can't save anybody with his skill, and half the time you can't stay alive with his skill, especially with a teleport in person. I will say that out of my character tier list, I think that people have the best argument with the Explorer placement. I think it's more subjective than anything, but one thing that we should agree with is that he is not a ranked character at all. He's not a ranked character. So, to highlight the reason for this list, we put an emphasis on veteran bonus. That's a very, if anyone plays Hunter, you know why veteran bonus is very, very good. We put an emphasis on the ability to save without having a static debuff. We put a really big negative emphasis on static debuffs to decoding. Don't ever choose a character. It just means you're not good enough using another character, and you compromise the team's ability to decode as fast as possible, which is unfair to the kiter, which is unfair to the coordinator, and which is unfair to everybody else that's trying to decode as fast as possible, but you have a garbage decode rate because you just don't know how to cut yet with a magician or a thief. And we also put an emphasis on the versatility, like mechanic, where you have a lot of things that you can do with the mechanic. You have a lot of things that you can do with the coordinator, not so much with the thief. You can kite and decode with the thief. Same thing with the magician. You have a little bit of saving potential with the magician. So if anything, the magician is actually more versatile than the thief. This is my official character list. I'm not going to budge on this. S, A, and B are extremely important for ranked tiers. Anything underneath S, A, and B, you don't see top tiers using. It's just that simple. You can give me these theoretical arguments why you can use C or D, but I'm going to cringe if you're on my team. I'll probably cry a little bit. Although Lucky Guy, I don't mind so much if I see in rank. I think it's funny using Lucky Guy in rank. So this is my official character list. By all means, give me your comments, give me your arguments. I know some of you guys are going to yell at me. I know some of you have very good characters, favorite characters, and you're not going to appreciate them being on C, D, and F. And ultimately, if you're playing the game to have fun, do not listen to me at all. Tell me to go pound sand or something. If you're trying to have fun with the game, play whoever the hell you want. Don't listen to people like me. Ultimately, that comes first. However, be at least a little mindful if you're playing rank. Some people do want to rank up, and when you choose these sorts of characters like D, it really compromises your team. And yeah, so we have a lot of people who are commenting right now. I'm actually on live feed and I'm recording this at the same time, so feel free again to send your comments and your feedback, give me your arguments, but remember, I will listen to arguments about possibly Explorer, and I will listen to arguments about maybe the C placement. But the D, I'm telling you, the D, Forward and Mercenary are not good characters. Don't play them. I would rather have a Gardener on my team than either one of them. They're not good. I'm sorry. Come up with the very one situational variable that you can try to argue saying that they're good characters. I'm not saying they're not great, phenomenal kiters. I'm saying great hunters will ignore them in the beginning, and now you're going to make whoever's kiting job a miserable hell because you are decoding at a trash rate. So that's my video. I hope it causes a little bit of controversy, but a lot of top tiers agree with this ranking. Or like I said, S, A, and B, they are the most important characters for rank, for top tier ranks. You can see my live feeds at all the time. You can see this actually playing out against some of the top hunters in the game. Thank you very much for watching. And oh, I've noticed that YouTubers always tell people to like and subscribe. So this is me not telling you to like and subscribe. You do what the hell you want. But thank you for watching. Have a good day, guys. Damn it, my mouse is dead. I'm actually going to keep this in the YouTube video. Okay, wait, mouse is... Hold on. Okay, we're stopping now. Bye.